if you were not paying attention, apparently this must have happened Friday. The House actually just passed a new defense bill, and I want to explain to you why this is problematic, other than the large budget, the ridiculous budget for this defense budget. But there's something else, and we're going to bring in this article here, and I want to explain to you why this is happening. House passes defense bill automatically registering men 18 to 26 for the draft. So for those who are not aware, at age 18, men in the United States are supposed to register for the draft, but it wasn't automatic. And now they are trying to make this an automatic thing. So it's interesting. We can't automatically be registered to vote, but you can automatically be drafted. Let's get into this article here. We're going to pull this up, and we have a couple other things to dive into the story as well. The House of Representatives passed a measure on Friday automatically registering men age 18 to 26 for selective service. It was part of the annual National Defense Authorization Act, which sets out the U.S. government's military and national security priorities over the next fiscal year. This year's NDAA authorizes $895.2 billion in military spending and $9 billion increase from fiscal 2024. So once again, the defense budget has increased. Again, I told you guys multiple times, never in my lifetime. It has never been this high in my lifetime. I'll have to find that chart sometime to show you again how it has increased over the years. But this is the first time I've seen it this high. And this money can be used in other ways in our country that will actually help out the people. But again, this is all about profit for the military industrial complex, and there is profit for the MIC with war. Let's go into a little bit further here. While it hasn't been invoked in over half a century, it's mandatory for all male U.S. citizens to register for selective service, also known as the military draft, when they turn 18. Failure to register is classified as a felony and comes with a host of legal challenges. Supporters of the amendment argue that it would cut down on bureaucratic red tape and help U.S. citizens avoid unnecessary legal issues, as well as cutting down on the taxpayer dollars, look how they do this, going towards prosecuting those cases. So again, if they can cut down red tape when it comes to the draft, they can also cut down red tape when it comes to voting, right? So people, I think in this country, American citizens should automatically be registered to vote. It's up to you if you want to vote, but I think that should be automatic. Let's go on. Look who led this bill. It was led by Representative Chrissy Houlihan. She's a Democrat, and passed in the House Armed Services Committee version of the NDAA in May. The NDAA advanced through the committee in an overwhelming 57-1 vote. And this is Chrissy here. So this is why I continue to say, when it comes to the military industrial complex, this is not just something that's unique to the Republican Party. It's unique to both parties. Both parties support war and the military industrial complex. This bill was pushed by a Democrat politician. The Democrats are just as much warmongers as the Republicans. Let's continue a little bit more on here. By using available federal databases, the Selective Service Agency will be able to register all individuals required and thus ensure that any future military draft is fair and equitable. Let's talk about fair and equitable. I think we all know any type of draft is not going to be fair and equitable. Let's think about who will be drafted first, and let's think about who will be able to get out of it. Rich people, we're talking about 18-year-olds that come from wealthy families, will find a way to get out of it. They'll find a way, whether it's moving to another country for that year, whether it's signing up or, attending college or whatever, they will have the money and the means to find a way not to be drafted. Imagine if you're the son of a senator, a wealthy senator, and he does not want his son to go fight in these wars, even though he's voting for these bills. Because of who your daddy is, you may be able to get out of it. Let's talk about who probably is not going to get out of it and who will most likely probably be drafted first. I think you all know this. They're more likely to come after and draft Black males age 18 to 26. This is not uniquely different from things that have been done before. Poor males from 18 to 26. Working class males from 18 to 26. Those are the people that they're going to send to go fight their wars. Why are they doing this now? With the war with Russia and Ukraine, and there seems to be no end in sight with that, at least this year. Then you also have Israel's assault on Gaza. There's also that. Under Joe Biden, war has increased. The problem is that a lot of younger people are not signing up for selective service. Military recruitment has decreased over the years. In fact, they covered this last year on multiple news outlets because they were concerned that younger people were choosing not to sign up for the military. And why would they want to sign up for the military? The younger generation is more aware of what's happening abroad. They're more aware of countries that the U.S. has devastated through war and through imperialism. So yes, they are less likely to try to join the military. Now, I want to get into the recruitment here in just a second, because I want you to see this part about the pay raise. The NDAA also included the largest ever military pay raise in history, with a 19.5 increase for junior enlisted troops and a 4.5 increase for others. It also included funding for 2 new Virginia-class submarines and the establishment of a drone force within the U.S. Army, among other provisions. And you can see there's a picture there of Mike Johnson. The NDAA passed the House in a 217 to 199 vote, but it's unlikely to be taken up in the Senate. Now, listen to this. Senator Chuck Schumer blasted the bill on Friday afternoon over the inclusion of amendments curbing funding for abortion, transgender medical care, and diversity efforts. So this bill also includes other issues as well. It's not just about defense. You know how they lump these subjects together under one bill, right? That's on purpose. I've told you guys this before. But it seems like it's not likely to pass in the Senate. At least that's what it looks like right now. We'll have to wait and see. Now, there was a gentleman here on TikTok. I want you to hear what he had to say about this, because again, at the end of the day, they want to send your kids, your brothers, your sons, your nephews, your cousins to go fight their wars, their proxy wars. Listen to this gentleman. He breaks this down very well.
You could possibly be automatically drafted now. You remember when you had to sign up for the draft? Well, not any longer. The House of Representatives, you know, the people that give hundreds of billions of dollars of our taxpayer money to fight wars around the world? Well, now they're automatically registering you as soon as you turn 18, you, men, for the draft. When did the draft start? 1975. You know, when most of the House of Representatives who voted on this graduated college. Well, they're now voting for you to automatically get ready for a draft. Why? Do they want us to fight against Russia and China? Is it because we've been pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into wars and not into the United States and building ourselves up and instead fighting wars? Who knows? And it's probably not going to pass the Senate because a lot of people are against it, because this was a part of a defense bill that would authorize $895 billion in military spending. But hey, welcome to the land of the free. I mean, free for the rich, not you. You're going to war maybe. And you don't get a say right here in the good old USA. And boy, people are mad that women are involved. That's because here in the good old USA, men and women are separated. Yeah, try.
That's another thing, too, that has been mentioned, right? Like some people are also saying that this could also include women as well. So women, like, don't think that you would be immune. Again, I don't think this is going to pass in the Senate. I hope it doesn't pass in the Senate, but you have to know about this because I want you to see what your representatives are trying to do. And they were kind of quiet about this one. They were kind of quiet about it. I want to bring up this point here. From civil disobedience, every male already has to sign up for selective service at age 18. I had to in 1995. Yes. So if you already are required to do it, why would they make it automatic, right? That tells me that everyone hasn't been doing it. That's what that tells me. Now, military recruiting is down. I've been discussing this for the past 2 years. Younger people are choosing not to join the military. It's not as popular as it used to be. I mean, I remember when I was graduating high school, most of my classmates were either joining the military or they were going to college, or they were continuing working at the businesses that they already worked at. Like, so some of them already had part-time jobs and they were going to try to work their way up there. Some people were trying to go to AmeriCorps, like all these different programs, but it wasn't uncommon for people when I was graduating high school to join the military, sometimes as a last resort because they wanted the benefits. But that has changed over the years. I want to take you back to 8 months ago, when News Nation actually covered this about the military recruitment problem. I've been warning people about this, and I was afraid that they would try to do something like this. Listen.
Well, it is no secret the U.S. military has had trouble hitting recruiting targets these last couple of years. Earlier this year, the Department of Defense estimating the 3 primary branches, the Army, Navy, and Air Force, would fall short of their recruitment goals for 2023 by up to 10,000. Some of this has to do with the current worker-friendly job market and the fact that the pandemic kept recruiters out of high schools for a period of time. But physical fitness tests weeding out potential recruits and at times disqualifying soldiers who must pass a physical twice a year have played a role as well. Washington correspondent Evan Lambert is live at the Pentagon. So, Evan, it sounds like we're seeing changes in the way various branches assess physical fitness in response to this.
Now, let's pause. So they wanted to blame this due to physical fitness. They're not able to pass the physical fitness requirements for the military, which are actually pretty strict, by the way. I know one person in particular that did not get into the Air Force because they didn't pass the body taping test. So they actually were taping. I don't know if they still do this now, but at that point in time, they actually tape your body, and that's what they go by, not necessarily how much you weigh. So you could weigh like, I don't know, maybe 100 and let's say 40 pounds, but let's say like you might be a little on the thick side. You know, she didn't make the weigh because like she had, you know, bigger twins. Let's just say she had some big twins out there, right? So she didn't pass the body taping because of that. So that can be pretty strict. But the reality is, which they leave out of this conversation, they're trying to blame it on physical fitness. It's not just about physical fitness. There are fewer people choosing to join the military, and that's just the reality. And I said before, the younger generation, they don't find it appealing. They're more likely to criticize the U.S. foreign policy actions that have happened over the years. They're less likely to be willing to join the military. And they left that out of this conversation. Let's continue a little bit more here.
Kelly, we'll get to that in just a second, but in many ways, physical fitness and recruitment for the different branches going hand in hand. The biggest problem that we're seeing, according to officials, is that plummeting number of young people who are eligible to serve both physically and academically, and that leads to this dismal recruiting environment that we've seen backed up by numbers. Top military brass estimated the Army, Navy, and Air Force would not make their enlistment goals for 2023. That is the fiscal year that ended yesterday, short by 10,000, 6,000, and 10,000 recruits, respectively. The services that are meeting their goals for the year are the Marines and Space Force, which do not seem to have the same problems as their counterparts, at least when it comes to this year's enlistment numbers. Pentagon leaders blaming a few things here. First, the pandemic severely restricting in-person recruiting efforts in high schools, a lack of connection with military service for possible recruits, and also that competitive private job market. Those are the reasons that potential enlistees aren't signing up, they say. There is a bright spot, though, Kelly. The Army has seen success with a pilot program that we witnessed last year to get recruits in better physical and academic shape and ready for boot camp. There have been nearly 9,000 recruits graduating from that program about a year after its debut. And now the Army has simplified the often dreaded tape test for soldiers, measuring now just 1 point at the waist to gauge body fat. That is expected to have more soldiers failing that test, but they are able to appeal it essentially and use new technology, if available to them, where they're based. These body scans, these whole body scans that are supposed to be a more accurate way to measure body fat. They can.
Okay, so let's chime in here for just a second. So the recruitment numbers have decreased, but it's not because the military is no longer recruiting. Military are still appearing at high schools. He mentioned the pandemic, but this is last year. This was 2023, right? So a lot of those restrictions were already lifted in reference to the pandemic. That being said, I remember military recruiters came to my high school. I remember they came to my college. Like, I never remember not seeing them at some point in time. So those things didn't stop, but younger people are choosing not to because they don't want to fight in these wars. And what I noticed from this segment about News Nation is not once did they mention that in this segment. They said, well, they just don't meet the physical fitness requirements. Yeah, but that doesn't count the people who are choosing not to sign up at all. So it's very clear they did not want to have that discussion. Now, Dennis Kucinich is very livid about this. He's actually started a petition against this because he's been warning people too that it was a possibility that something like this could happen. I want you to hear from him. He's been very vocal about this. Do not sign up for the military. Do not sign up to go fight in these wars. Listen to this.
This is former Congressman Dennis Kucinich with an urgent message for young Americans. The House of Representatives has just passed a law which will automatically register all 18 to 26-year-old males preliminary to a draft. At present, 18-year-olds are required to register. But this bill will require or will cause young people to go into the draft system automatically for the first time since 1972 and the war in Vietnam. Now, I'm opposed to automatic registration. I oppose it on constitutional grounds, and I oppose it because it's only to build up an army of young people to send to fight and die in foreign wars. Your liberty and your life is at stake here. The Senate version of the bill will require young women ages 18 to 26 to register for selective service preliminary to a draft. Make your voice heard. Join with me in stopping this erosion of individual rights. Please sign the petition. Thank you.
Now, Dennis Kucinich is one of those, former politicians. Actually, he's running for Congress as an independent. And he told me he thinks that he believes he has a good chance of winning because it's his old district and the people in the community know him very well. But just imagine if Dennis Kucinich was in Congress right now. Would Dennis Kucinich have voted for this? No. This was a bipartisan bill. On both sides of the aisle, they want your son, your daughter, your brother. They want your family members to go die in their wars. And there's no other way to frame it but other than that. That's what they want to happen. So Dennis Kucinich does have this petition. I do want to show you that here as well, where you can sign up and protest against this. Why and where will we be sending our kids to war? Take action for our nation's youth. Our government is planning a big draft, setting in motion a process where millions are automatically registered with selective service. It goes on to say, this is at a time when our government is expanding wars globally. The House just passed a defense authorization bill, which provides for automatic selective service registration, which then places each individual in the system for potential draft call up. Currently, 18-year-old males would, at their own instance, register with the selective service. Why an automatic registration for the draft for the first time since 1972 during the Vietnam War? Automatic registration is a draft dragnet. It makes it easier for the government to use a multitude of databases to track young Americans for purposes of conscription. So I want you to think about all of those guys, the videos that you've seen of Ukrainian men being pulled off the streets and pulled into vans to go fight in their wars. This is essentially the same thing, although they're not pulling you off the street yet, but they're still pulling you to go fight in their wars, to go die for this country. It makes it easier for the government to use that. Oh, sorry. There are serious constitutional issues with automatic registration for selective service leading to conscription, including violation of the Fourth Amendment privacy rights and Fifth Amendment due process rights. This goes against the spirit of individual liberty, which the founders of our country established. Thomas Jefferson on conscription, our people had learned to consider it as the last of all oppressions. So Eric, if you can put the link to this petition in the chat so people can sign against this, and let your representatives know that you are not in favor of this. And I warned people, I had a feeling that this was going to happen. And I said that because the recruitment was low, and you have military recruiters trying to recruit kids on Twitch, all over the place. The recruitment is low, and we have more wars. We have the war with Russia and Ukraine. Joe Biden said he would not, he would not be against sending U.S. troops to go fight for Russia and Ukraine. Like, this is crazy. You have Israel's assault on Gaza. Let's not forget Aaron, right? Don't forget about the gentleman who set himself on fire because he did not want to go fight Israel's war and kill Palestinian people. Let's not forget about why he did what he did, because he knew they were trying to recruit Air Force members to do just that. And if you think it doesn't get to the point where our government will be willing to send army troops, Marines, Navy over to Israel to fight against the Palestinian people, to tear down those people, again, they do not have a military. Gaza does not have a military. Don't be surprised. It could happen. All for war. Now, Eric made a really good point. Why is this all happening at the end of the day? Of course, the draft should be banned. But why do we have all these wars and militarism? Big money and corruption is at the root. Nothing will really change until we connect those dots and get in the streets to demand an end to it. MC/DS 11 demands.org. And this is 11 demands that Eric has created here, right? So one of the things that he brings up is money. Big money runs everything in DC. The answer to all the why questions in politics is the same. Why are Democrats so weak? Why are Republicans so vicious? It's because they are paid to be that way, right? Corruption. Our so-called representatives do not represent us. They represent the billionaires, banks, and mega corporations. They must be called out relentlessly as what they are: corrupt. Demands. Have a clear list of demands is crucial, and fixing big money in politics and government needs to be at the top. Solutions. Flowing from the demands are solutions. A movement has to be about more than just pointing out all the problems we face. It needs to provide a vision of a better world and a path to reaching it. Toward those ends are the 11 demands strategy. So again, at the end of the day, Eric is correct. The answer to a lot of this, but why is this happening? But why when it comes to our government, is because of money and corruption. And Eric has put the link to that in the chat. So on your free time, you can check out 11 demands. We've covered it as well on this show before a couple of times, but this is not okay. Do you want your son to go fight their wars against his will? Is that what we're doing now? We cannot go back to the days of Vietnam War. We cannot go back to those days. Think about that when it's time to vote.